My guest is Rabbi Dov Marmer, Rabbi Emeritus from Holy Blossom Temple. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You've been on before, and now you live half the year in Jerusalem. You have a sense of the media and what it does for Israel and what it doesn't do. What's your sense of the importance of this show?
I can see two aspects of
Well,
it.
you can, if they're negative, it's all right.
I can see two aspects of it. The negatives we'll talk about later. But first of all, that it presents Israel and various aspects of Judaism as is, not in some adversarial situation, and not to debate and not to defend. So you see all kinds of aspects, which I think is very important for the non-Jewish community, to see Jews who are no different than others. For the Jewish community, it's also important because we see aspects of the community, particularly about Israel, that we don't come across, that tourists don't come across when we go and visit, and which do not appear in the debates here either. Movies, strange people. A friend of mine a few years ago was a wine connoisseur in Israel. You know, I wouldn't have thought of it in those terms. So this has been different and interesting and wholesome, and I hope successful.
And when you've been on the show, what response has there been when you appeared as a guest?
When you are on television, it doesn't matter what you say. People will come up to you and say, I saw you on television, which normally means, well, you must be somebody.
I see.
Yes.
Your instant
Yes.
15 seconds fame.
That's right, that's right. So this is how I have perceived it, not only on your show, but on anything else over the years that I have been. It's always been good. It doesn't matter however stupid I was in answering your questions.
You're never stupid. Last question. Do you think it's important that we have a membership base, a community base for the program?
I don't know about that. It's important that I think that there is a fan club around, yes? And if that's to cost a few dollars, of course. Namely, that there are a number of people, a critical mass, who feel that this is relevant and important to them, and perhaps they will in turn talk to others about it, because you're doing a good job, and I hope you'll continue.
I'll pay your bribe later.
Thank you.
Now that you're retired. Well, thank you very much, Dov, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And of course, I always appreciate our conversations, and we just had lunch. It was terrific. Thanks again. Micha, you had to leave after the first break and teach, and now you're coming back here. You taught what, about Talmud, Torah?
Some philosophical aspects of Ecclesiastes.
Well, really?
Yeah, Kohelet, yeah.
And who's teaching now?
And right now you have Micha Shalvi, a great friend. He's teaching the foundations of Zionism. He's teaching a great thinker called Brenner.
Oh, Brenner.
Which is a radical thinker from the early 20th century.
Now, when you're teaching all this, it's like a great books course. But you must have a philosophy behind this place. How would you describe it? Especially you're a philosopher. You've got a PhD in philosophy.
First, let's go through what they went through this week.
Yeah.
That was Thursday.
Yeah.
We're taking this on Thursday. They've started on Sunday to read Ecclesiastes. And they read the entire book, hopefully twice. And after they read the whole book, hopefully twice, with each other, and debated and reflected and dived into the book, they were ready for me to present my thoughts about Ecclesiastes and challenge my thoughts about Ecclesiastes.
And if they're Israelis, they will.
And if they're Israelis, they will. And hopefully they went for the same thing this week with Brenner, which is taught now. This is the way I think, but what they're going through is not only great books and great ideas. I'm a Straussian, I believe that there are great books. I believe that there are great ideas, and I believe that in order to touch greatness, you have to connect yourself to the greatness of all generations. But it's not only that. There is also a very powerful social experience going on here. They're experiencing group building. By the end of the process, they feel like that their group is even a little bit more important than themselves, and they leave this place with best friends. And the idea that you connect yourself to great ideas and to great people and to great books simultaneously is what makes this experience very powerful. By the way, there's one more element. They also connect to their Jewish identity, to Israeli identity, and to their Zionist identity. If there's a fifth element, it's body. Meaning in this intellectual or spiritual voyage, we hope that they won't forget their body on their way.
You mean you run them through military exercises?
No, they run every day. They do yoga. They learn martial arts. They do kung fu. We don't want to...
You do kung fu? Now, be honest.
You asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Sometimes I join them in yoga. I'm afraid they'll beat me up if I join them in kung fu, but I like to run. In the end, we're talking about a holistic experience where when they graduate, so they feel more confident in their bodies, they feel more confident in who they are as Jews, as Zionists, and Israelis. They're connected to great ideas, they read great books, and they have great friends. And that package together creates, hopefully, a new type of an Israeli.
Okay, describe this new Israeli.
Well, I'll tell you.
Because I think I'm going to call this show the New Israelites.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, he's not the Tzabah, the Sabra of the 50s, which is a collectivist. Everything is about God, not God, about country and nation. And he's not the yuppie of the 90s, which everything is about, stereotypically, about myself, the I generation, materialism. We're talking about a new type of prototype of Israeliness. It's not the Saba, it's not the yuppie. I'll tell you what, it's a person that on the one hand, he's a great individual, he empowers himself, but he's not egoistic. And he's empowering himself, but all those powers are not for himself. So he tries to develop a unique personality, but it's not his personality. It's his personality, but it's not about him or her. It's not something greater than them. These people are great believers in Israel. Now they're not very verbal about it because it's so intuitive that they can't even express it. They're great believers in Israel. They're great believers in humanity. And the way they'll live their life is in the following. They'll be creating startups. You know, we are the startup nation.
Yeah, right.
They'll be running for parliament. They'll be becoming politicians and lawyers and businessmen or athletes. But part of their life, they'll be volunteering. And by delivering their time to society, they'll be declaring that my life is not only about me. They'll also be learning. An hour a week, 5-hour weeks, not only the scholars, just average.
So you inculcate lifelong learning into everybody.
Life and volunteering. And by learning and volunteering, there's a great expression. By saying, there's a world of knowledge out there that's greater than me. There's a society out there that's more important than me. And by volunteering and learning, I'm saying my life is not only about me. And I believe that's a very powerful way to experience life.
And when you're defining that as a kind of mission, and then what, the postmodern Zionist, is that what you would call it?
I would say the postmodern Zionist, but this is a new Zionist.
Yeah, because postmodern suggests relativism, it suggests, and this seems to be the very opposite.
That's right. I think, here's a problem. I think postmodern Zionist is a Zionist that doesn't believe in the legitimization of the Jewish state. But we are all post-Zionist in another sense, Howard. Not in the ideological sense, but in the psychological sense. If Zionism was the calling to create the Jewish state, well, there's a problem. The state's here, and you can't create it again. And there's a strong sense in Israel that the big moments of history are behind us. And the great glory of history is behind us. And we're the generation that's after the big great events. These new Israelis feel like the history is not behind them, but in front of them. They believe like there's still a state to build here. And the piece that's still missing, we have a great military, we have a great economy, but the piece that's still missing is the Jewish piece. Now they've grown in a world of a dichotomic, sick world, where Israel offers you either radical secularism, where Judaism doesn't interest me, or very firm orthodoxy, where I'm completely surrendered to Jewish tradition. And these people are trying to create a new identity opportunity for new generations of Israelis. And that's a piece that we feel like history is in front of us. This is something that we need to create. We need new ideas, new leaders, and we're going to create this, and we're going to create this together. And therefore, I think there is a Zionist excitement because we're starting something big, but we're also completing something that already began.
And do you find that you've really succeeded in doing this? Are the people, let me ask, are the people who drop out of the program?
Not too many. Sometimes you have like very orthodox people that feel not comfortable studying secular texts with secular people. Sometimes you have secular Israelis that don't believe that this is for real, and they think this is some hidden agenda of indoctrination.
I see.
But the vast majority, 25%, are in it for the whole thing, for the whole deal.
Well, it's very impressive. I mean, I had the experience of its impressiveness, you know, and I'm looking forward to meeting some of the students and graduates. But what's happened to you between the time you created this, because you were one of the initiators,
Yeah,
the key
one of them,
initiator,
yeah.
And now? How have you changed in the process of doing this?
Well, actually, I have changed. In the beginning, I had in mind a real, pure intellectual program, where it's all about studying Aristotle, Plato, Talmud, Bible. I thought the innovation is that we study both Talmud and Plato, and we study them both in the yeshiva method. But I realized that what's happened is greater, and there are more important things than just learning. The bond, the friendship that's been happening here, sometimes it's more important than understanding another nuance in Plato. The fact that they gain confidence in their personalities and their character, a very powerful emotional process, is at least as important as the intellectual process. What happened was this program expanded from just being an academic program to being a holistic program, where everything we are as a personality counts. And it happened to me also. Like you asked if I ever joined Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I joined Kung Fu. I like to be the kind of guy that doesn't only read Plato, but also
Does Kung Fu.
Also does
But you haven't done it yet.
well, I'm working on myself.
I remember being actually it was in Israel. We were on a mission in Israel, and one of my colleagues does yoga all the time. She kept saying, come to yoga. And I said, no. So I did finally come, but I was a satirist of the yoga. I couldn't get involved at that stage. So it's very hard at certain stages to transform yourself.
I hope I'm not lost yet.
I'm lost. You can be saved still. I want to thank you, Micha.
Thank you, Howard.
It's a wonderful experience being here. It's a wonderful experience what you've done. And you see quite a big future for this, I gather.
I think this place has a great future. Howard, I think Israel has a great future. Constantly when I meet American Jews and Canadian Jews, they're always frustrated that Israel is not the Israel of the 50s. It's not the glorious Israel of the kibbutzim. But I think we should judge Israel not in light of its past, but in light of its future. There is going to be a new type of kibbutzim, new type of great experiments, new type of Israelis. And I think what we see here is the promise of Israel's future. And Israel always was a gigantic laboratory where we're experimenting the best of world's ideas. And I think Israel has a great future, experimenting great ideas of how to become individualistic without being egoistic, how to be patriotic without losing yourself as an individual on the way. And Israel is experimenting, Israel is performing, and it's creating new type of prototypes, new type of Israelis, new type of human beings.
Well, I look forward to interviewing some of your students and doing a kind of test and seeing whether what you said has any truth in it. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Howard.